It is Monday, November 3rd, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Iraqi Kurdish Peshmerga forces have crossed the Turkish border to help defend the Syrian town of Kobane from the Islamic State organization. The SpaceShip Two crash over the weekend casts doubt on Richard Branson's space tourism project. And later on the show, Christmas is here early with the debut of Grumpy Cat's new movie. We'll take a sneak peek at the trailer. Good morning, I'm Yael Avi, and we begin with the latest from Kobane and Iraq and the battle against the Islamic State organization. Basically, over the weekend, Iraqi Kurdish fighters have joined the fight against the Islamic State organization militants in Kobane, hoping their support for fellow Kurds backed by US-led airstrikes will keep the ultra-hardline group from seizing the Syrian border town. According to Iraqi reports, mass killings by the Islamic State militants have seen 322 members of an Iraqi Sunni tribe killed in the western Anbar province in basically what seems to be an execution. Now, the country's Ministry of Human Rights said more than 50 bodies were found in a water well, while 65 members of the Al Abu Nim tribe have been kidnapped. Still with us, basically, is the reports from last night. We will take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
Around 20,000 Kurds rallied across Turkey to show support for Kobane after Iraqi Kurds arrived in the embattled town to reinforce Syrian fighters against the IS. Turkey finally authorized 150 Iraqi Kurds to cross the border into Kobane last week, in a move that sparked criticism over Turkey's commitment to the fight. But in a media address in France, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said it's time for Western leaders to advance into other towns in Syria and Iraq.
Why Kobane? And why not other towns in Syria? Why not Iraq? 30% of which is occupied. Why aren't we advancing there? Why are we only advancing in Kobane?
Erdogan's claims are not misplaced. Opposition rebel forces have reportedly been frustrated by the coalition's narrow focus on Kobane and its disregard of the wider Syrian conflict. According to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, Syrian warplanes have dropped at least 401 barrel bombs on rebel areas in 8 provinces in the country, killing mostly civilians. Coalition strikes have been targeting IS strongholds to a greater extent than Syrian military forces or infrastructure. Ironically, this resulted in helping President Bashar al-Assad against one of his most powerful and influential threats. While the fight against the IS brings together unlikely allies, Assad's rule over Syria appears to be holding power. So far, Kobane has been under siege for 6 weeks, in a battle that has left an approximate 800 dead and forced more than 200,000 to flee across the Turkish border.
We are joined from Erbil, Iraq, by freelance reporter Hermione G. Hermione, good morning to you.
Morning.
Well, first of all, we have been hearing reports over the course of the last week that the Iraqi Kurdish fighters are heading towards Kobane, towards Syria. You are in Erbil, that's the predominantly Kurdish area of Iraq. First of all, the support for, what is the talk where you're at when it comes to, the fighters heading towards Iraq? Do they understand how bad the battle is out there? How many have left the Kurdish part of Iraq? And do you believe, or are theories actually, that they are able to support that fight in Kobane, in that town in Syria that is going so badly over the course of the last month?
Well, what we're hearing is that 150 Kurdish Peshmerga fighters have left the Kurdistan region of Iraq and have arrived in Kobane. They've actually crossed into Kobane on Friday. People here are very, very supportive. I mean, I think probably one of the reasons that the Kurdistan regional government agreed to send the Peshmerga was in fact due to public opinion. Public opinion was very, very keen to support the fighters in Kobane. Importantly, the Peshmerga fighters have taken heavy weaponry with them. They have mobile rocket launchers, they have anti-tank guns, they have heavy machine guns. So that's probably going to be more important, honestly, than the actual fight.
I was thinking that the actual fighting, when you're saying the amount of the amount of Peshmerga fighters that have left Erbil, 150 is an awfully small number at the end of the day, when we're thinking of the amount of, force that seems to be needed to combat the Islamic organization in Kobane.
Absolutely, it's tiny. I mean, I think again, really, they're there. It's sort of a show of support as much as anything. The thing is, the Peshmerga here obviously have a very difficult fight on their hands just protecting the Kurdistan region. So they can't really spare, the Kurdistan government can't really spare many fighters. So I think it's this show of support for Kobane, but they are taking weapons and they do know how to use those weapons. They're trained on using those weapons. So what we're hearing is that the Peshmerga fighters will not be on the front lines. They will be providing artillery cover for the YPG fighters inside Kobane, using these heavy weapons that they are taking with them. So I think that's going to be the most significant advantage that the Peshmerga bring, because like you say, 150 fighters, it's nothing really.
Yeah, exactly, it's a minuscule amount of fighters, and you mentioned, and I want to hear a little bit more about that, the fight in Iraqi Kurdistan, so to speak, if I may call it that way, but in the Kurdish parts of Iraq, that's still raging on. It was also a very bloody weekend in Iraq when it comes to what seems to be actual, mass executions on behalf of the Islamic organization.
Absolutely. I mean, here in the Kurdistan region, the Peshmerga have had a couple of important victories over the last week. Last weekend, they retook the town of Zumar, which is north of Mosul, north of Sinjar. So that's very important, partly because they managed to reclaim that area, but also because it gives them a strategic point from which eventually to launch an attack on Sinjar and on Mosul, where the Islamic State have their base essentially. So that's very important. But yes, as you say, sort of further south in Anbar province, we've seen terrible massacres. The Iraqi government is saying 322. It's likely probably more than that. At the same time, 1,000 families have been displaced. Other people are kidnapped. Something in the region of 200, 300 people have been kidnapped. And this seems to be retaliation by the Islamic State on this one tribe that has been resisting them really since the summer, since June. And the Islamic State are now trying to really do away with any competition, any threat they have inside the areas they control, which is why we're seeing this sort of terrible massacre that happened at the end of last week and over the weekend.
That's awful. It sounds like, the year zero of the Khmer Rouge. Question to you, does it seem that the people in Iraq, be it the Kurdish, you are basically, as I said, in predominantly Kurdish Iraq, is there a call, is there some, notion that the civilians or the people living in Iraq going through all this mess, that there's a push to ask for more international help? Because clearly airstrikes seem to assist the Peshmerga fighters when it comes to where you're at, but it's like the battle is not really being won. Am I right in saying that?
Absolutely. I mean, in some areas there are victories, but absolutely in Anbar, the situation is very, very volatile. It's far from clear that the Iraqi forces are winning. I think certainly many people would like to see international troops on the ground, obviously American troops. They also call for international forces to protect some areas. So I think, yes, many people here would like to see American boots on the ground, international boots on the ground. However, in places like Anbar, that would be extremely difficult because there's still a lot of suspicion of the Americans, of the international forces going back to 2003. I think the key to Anbar will be getting the Sunni tribes on the ground to work with the Iraqi government, with the international forces. And they're in play. I mean, the Islamic State have also been trying to recruit them to their cause. What we saw this weekend, the possible benefit could be that we see the Sunni tribes uniting against the Islamic State. That's the hope that will come out of this terrible massacre. Right. Although the Abu Nimr tribe that was targeted by the Islamic State this weekend are also blaming the government in Baghdad and saying that they had been begging for additional support, for additional weapons to hold off the militants, but hadn't been given that. So they're feeling a lot of anger right now directed at the government. But what we should hope for is that ultimately what comes out of this is that they are prepared to work more closely with the forces fighting against the Islamic State militants in Anbar.
No, indeed. Otherwise, that's more fragments, and Iraq is already broken apart. Hermione, thank you so much for being with us this morning, and always good checking in with you and finding out what this all really means.
Thank you.
On to our next topic, still in the region. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to maintain long-standing worship arrangements at Jerusalem's most sensitive religious site yesterday, calling for calm and restraint amid the rising tensions in the city. Palestinian protesters and Israeli police have clashed almost daily in East Jerusalem in recent months, with much of the unrest focused on the sacred compound revered by both Jews and Muslims, namely Temple Mount or Haram al-Sharif. From the Palestinian side, in a rare show of support, Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas backed Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's call for Israeli politicians to lower tensions surrounding the Temple Mount. We are joined in studio by I-24 News diplomatic correspondent Tal Shalev. Tal, good morning to you. And by I-24 News senior Middle East correspondent analyst Ali Waqed. Good morning to you as well. Let's first take a look at the following report and break it down from there.
The riots resumed in Jerusalem throughout the weekend after the Temple Mount was reopened Friday morning. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu pledged the prayer arrangement will not be changed while calling for restraint.
We are determined to maintain the status quo for all religions to prevent the eruption of riots in the Temple Mount and around it.
It was the first time in over 10 years that Israeli authorities shut all access to the holy site following the assassination attempt last Wednesday of the Jewish activist Yehuda Glick. But despite the Prime Minister's call to refrain from provocation, Moshe Feiglin, a right-wing lawmaker, arrived Sunday morning at the site under heavy guard, declaring the status quo on the Temple Mount will not be maintained.
I call the Prime Minister to change this attitude and to open the mountain to every Jew who wants to come and in a peaceful way to pray to God at his holiest site.
Outside of Jerusalem, the Arab League is getting involved as well, holding an emergency meeting to discuss, among other regional issues, what the League defines as violations against the Al-Aqsa Mosque by Israel. Jordan's King Abdullah also related to the issue at the opening of the Jordanian parliament, saying his country will not allow Israel to make unilateral moves in Jerusalem. But maybe more importantly, amid the tense ties between Israel and the U.S., American Secretary of State John Kerry will meet Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Erekat Monday to discuss how to advance the frozen peace process and lowering strains in Jerusalem. Kerry may be aiming at reviving Israeli-Palestinian talks, but these days it will be even more difficult to lure the sides back to the negotiating table, as Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas is promoting a unilateral move at the United Nations and plans to ask the Security Council to set a timetable to, quote, end the Israeli occupation and force Israel to withdraw from the West Bank. In the meantime, the attempts to control the violent spirits in Israel's capital and its holy sites will resume.
Joined in studio by Tal Shalev, I-24 News diplomatic correspondent, and of course Ali Waqed, a Middle East analyst for I-24 News. Tal, when the Israeli Prime Minister, to begin with, comes out and says that tries to calm notions down in Jerusalem. Clearly, obviously everybody would be very scared if Jerusalem blows up. That's something we don't need to explain to our audiences. But is this coming because of international pressure?
Definitely.
Tell me how much.
Over the weekend, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry tried to weigh in on the situation, speaking with both Netanyahu and Abbas, primarily focusing on Temple Mount. And we have a very heavy European presence in Jerusalem this week. We have three European foreign ministers visiting in Jerusalem. All of this will probably come up. It's the Danish, the Czech, and at the end of the week, the new EU foreign policy chief, Federica Mogherini. So definitely Jerusalem as the center, such a tense place and such a delicate place and volatile place. Definitely there's a lot of international pressure on Netanyahu, primarily to make sure that the Israeli government is not planning to change the status quo on Temple Mount. But despite Netanyahu trying to calm down the situation and clarifying again and again, he still has to deal with this big group of right-wing Knesset members.
Faction in his coalition. Yeah.
In his coalition, in his own party, which are part of the Temple Mount movement, which have been lobbied by the Jewish Temple Mount movement in the past few weeks, months, and years, and are now trying to promote legislation. This is what sparks the whole tension to begin with regarding Temple Mount. even if the government itself didn't have plans. The fact that someone from Netanyahu's party, like Miri Regev, a Knesset member, is promoting a law to enable Jewish access to Temple Mount, this sparks the whole tension. So Netanyahu is trying to keep down the situation. It's not clear that how much his coalition and his party is helping him.
Right. And Ali Waqid, I-24 News Middle East analyst, we hear a lot of in the Israeli media calling it Temple Mount, but I think the sticking point is that it's the Haram al-Sharif, right, at the end of the day. And when it comes to the Jordanians, they come out, King Abdullah comes out also over the course of the weekend and basically tries to, stop the situation from flaring up even more. How dangerous is it, if Jerusalem blows up when it comes to, all the surrounding areas?
It is very dangerous. Yael, we mentioned in our last meetings here that it's the first time that the Jerusalem Palestinian civilians are leading a kind of a Palestinian, it is for the moment local intifada. We mentioned also that in
religious intifada
exactly,
almost,
that
yes.
in the 1987 and in the 2000 intifada, the role of Jerusalem was very weak, and it was not enough according to the eyes of the Palestinian leadership and of the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip and in the West Bank, to show how much tender the situation and how much dangerous. In the last couple of days, Jordanians and Palestinians decided to put aside their internal competition about the sovereignty of Jerusalem and who is responsible and who is the representative of Jerusalem and of the holy sites. There is full coordination between Jordan and the Palestinian Authority. The two leadership are coordinated on every step against Israel. They are mobilizing other Arab states. Egypt, in the middle of the mess, the political mess that is taking, and security mess that is taking place in Egypt and in Sinai, is also using its weight vis-a-vis the international community to make the world clear that Jerusalem and the holy sites is a really red line. And we need to understand, Yael, we saw in your report about Iraq and Syria, we were talking about the status quo in Jerusalem and a status quo in the fights there. This status quo is serving the Islamic State because there are data that shows that every day there are more recruitees, more people that express to be ready to go to fight there. The Muslim Brotherhood organizations and associations are witnessing the fact that people are judging the Muslim Brotherhood ideology as not enough against the West, and they are joining exactly the Salafists. And Al-Aqsa is becoming a center of recruiting, first for Iraq and for Sinai, but there are already signs that show that the Al-Aqsa will be a part of the campaign of the Islamic organization, Global Jihad organization.
The rhetoric that they're going to use in order to add people. And so, question to you on that part. But because it's so deep in the hearts of everybody in this region, when Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, he supposedly overnight sent a letter to the family. I mean, last week we had this incident of an Israeli activist, extreme right-wing activist of the Temple Mount movement being the attempted assassination on him. The Palestinian who shot him, or the Israeli Arab, I don't know if he was Israeli Arab or Palestinian, from East Jerusalem, was gunned down by police. Mahmoud Abbas sends the family of this gunned down Palestinian, the suspect in the attempted assassination, sends him a letter of support. Why does he do that? Because at the end of the day, it's the first time that the Palestinian president sends a letter as such. And why does he have to sound so determined when it comes to Temple Mount / Haram al-Sharif?
One, the Palestinian Authority sent letters of condolences and some amount of money to every Palestinian family that has its son killed by the Israelis. So this is not new. The fact that in the Israeli media we try to represent it as something new, it is not accurate. Every Palestinian that is killed by the Israelis, the delicate cases where when Palestinians carried out suicide bombing attacks, for example, there the Palestinians tried to hide or even to send this very shy letter or late letter to the families. But this is part of the Palestinian political tradition starting since the 60s and even the 50s. Whenever Palestinian is killed by Israeli fire, there is this letter of support.
No, it's fascinating you said, because it's being reported in the Israeli press
and
as if it's...
Well, that's because of the Israeli politicians. Nobody would actually know, I think, about this letter of condolences. The first report about it came from a response, reaction, a statement from the foreign minister Avigdor Lieberman, slamming Abbas for not being a partner by showing this letter. This was the first mention of the letter by Avigdor Lieberman in the Israeli press.
And the second, it is true that Miri Regev, when participating in such a conference about the Temple Mount, did not kill anybody and did not assassinate anybody. But for the Palestinians, when we talk to them, you say, even, first of all, they are not sure that Mu'taz carried out the attack against the assassination.
And truth be told, there's yet to be an investigation to show
that.
Yes.
And second, they say when the Palestinian, Israeli senior politicians participate in meetings that aim to change the status quo, which mean to explode the situation, the less the Palestinian can do for the public opinion is their show that we are expressing all our solidarity with the people of Jerusalem, and there is an internal not fight, but a competition between Hamas and the Fatah. Abu Mazen is reading the poll. Al-Aqsa and the holy sites are something that are united the Palestinians.
To show a tougher stance.
Exactly, and we saw it yesterday by the declaration of the executive committee of the PLO when they made it very clear that Jerusalem is a red line, and without new framework for the whole negotiation process, all the international effort can be virtual and not sufficient.
And Netanyahu has been actually appealing to the international community, slamming the international community in the past week. Where's he? It's a recurring talking point. Where is the international community condemnations to Abbas's incitement? Netanyahu is talking specifically about a speech that Abbas gave about a week and a half ago, in which he called on Palestinians to defend Al-Aqsa compound by all means. Netanyahu has been appealing and criticizing the international community for not condemning this. The fact is that that has been going on for a week. We still haven't heard an international condemnation to Abbas, which means that one of the things.
Because I think that this is a lost campaign. It is a lost campaign for the Prime Minister.
No, it's a lost campaign. Also, it's a sticking point because it's not recognized as the capital of Israel, which we keep forgetting.
And first, when you see how the international community judges Abu Mazen as somebody who is committed to the peace process, and Netanyahu committed to reserve his right-wing coalition, Netanyahu can change his image and the government, the image of his government, only by measures on the ground and not by declarations and not by appealing the international community to do this and to do so.
And to do so, yes.
Well, but basically, they're in kind of at the moment, both sides are in a blame game. It's a blame game about who's not coming back. It's not even about who's ruining the peace process. It's about who's responsible for the violence. We're even in a worse, of course, we're in a worse situation than we were a few months ago before talks broke down. And while Secretary of State John Kerry is trying desperately to try and
revive some form
to revive and postpone the Palestinian bid to the UN Security Council, it doesn't look like chances are very high for that to be successful in any way.
And the interesting thing is that the Egyptians and Palestinian Authority are afraid that if the situation in Jerusalem will maintain, the Palestinian Authority will be more weak in its position, demanding Hamas, for example, to disarm in case of a political rearrangement in the Gaza Strip.
On that optimistic note, Ali Walker, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Tal Shalev as well. Thank you for being with us. Quickly on to our next topic with armed men in the polling station and international observers from an organization which seems to have been concocted the night before. Voters in rebel-held eastern Ukraine turned out to the polls yesterday to elect members of parliament and prime ministers in the pro-Russian separatist provinces of Donetsk and Luhansk. Now, the United States and the European Union have already denounced it as an illegitimate election, but Russia said it would recognize the result. Basically, according to exit polls, we don't really know who exactly has won these current elections. We are joined on the phone from Donetsk by Paula Sleer, Middle East Bureau Chief in Donetsk right now. Paula, good morning to you.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Okay, these elections, which, on the face of it, every international news outlet, most international news outlets, we should say that, are reporting them as completely illegal. Who has voted, who has elected, and who's going to recognize the outcome of these elections?
Look, there's a potential 4.5 million people who can vote here in eastern Ukraine, in the republics of Donetsk and Lugansk. They're still counting the votes, and we still don't have complete confirmation in terms of the voter turnout. But it does suggest that the figures hover around the 50 to 60% margin. Yesterday, traveling around Donetsk, I can tell you it's really cold here, and there were huge queues of people waiting outside. And I did have an opportunity to talk to some people. And very much the sentiment was that we have the right to hold these elections. It's important for us determining our future and important for our own sense of self-determination. As you mentioned, though, you have the Ukrainian government, the United States, and the European Union who say that
it's essentially the rest of the world and the country that Donetsk was supposedly in do not recognize it at all. So how much water is it going to hold?
Well, so much of what happens here, you need to ask yourself how much water does it hold, because it's really the same scene playing itself out over and over again. You had, for example, the Minsk agreement that was signed between the two sides several weeks ago. Now, there seems to be a misunderstanding in terms of that agreement, what would happen with these elections. You have the Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko, who said that the agreement allowed that these elections would be held in December in coordination with Ukraine, but that they've gone ahead now. It contradicts Ukrainian legislation, so much so that the Ukrainian security services have actually launched a criminal investigation against the organizers of this election. But then on the other side, you have Russia, which issued a statement from the foreign ministry late last night, and they said that their understanding of the Minsk agreement was that these elections, which are for parliamentary and presidential people to be sitting in the leadership roles here in the East, that those elections should happen now, but the time frame of October 19th to November the 3rd.
So interesting. Putting all these semantics aside of the Minsk agreement, et cetera, is Russia, if Russia is saying that these elections should be held now and that they will, support the outcome, what does that mean on the ground? Support how? We're going to help enact them with tanks, or support, just in essence, does anybody know?
I don't think Russia has ever swayed from its expression of how it sees the situation here on the ground. Russia has always said it is not militarily involved. Now, of course, that the West is criticizing that, and they constantly point to what they say is proof that Russia is involved. But Russia repeatedly has said it is not involved. It respects the right of people in eastern Ukraine to determine their own status and their own future. Right. I don't think we're going to have anything new. It's not that Russia is saying we're going to support it. All Russia is saying is that we will recognize these elections. They respect, this was part of the statement, that they respect the expression of the will of people in southeastern Ukraine. And they also point to the fact that because there was a high turnout, people are expressing their Russians, their free will.
Paula, thank you so much. Sadly, all the time we have. Joining us from Donetsk was Paula Slee. Want to get back, the private space industry is in a crisis as Virgin SpaceShip 2 test pilot is killed in a crash. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. I-24 News Morning Edition, October 3rd, 2014. The place to be, because this is where we say hello and good morning to Anthony Grant, who joins us daily to discuss the news you missed while scanning the headlines on this very ominous morning.
Yes,
I'm looking at
the wind came in and took away my hair. Anyway, good morning.
Yes, and
we're going to start with some hate. Unfortunately.
Yes, I think we should. We should.
We have to draw attention to this because I was very upset to see this news. Times of Israel reported that the Athens Holocaust Memorial was desecrated for the second time. And it's very upsetting. This is, of course, coming on the same time we're hearing about the Arbeit macht frei sign from Dachau. Concentration camp was stolen. Crazy people.
No, crazy people. And I want to ask you, what are you going to do? And we're not making fun of the situation. Okay?
No, it's
But when
pretty
that, that hate, and then when you see the sign, Arbeit macht frei, being stolen, what are the people who stole it going to do with it? Think about it first. You can't sell it on eBay, right?
Yeah, they may want to, but no, you can't. I don't know. Yeah. It's some elaborate prank, or but it raises the issue here in Athens for sure. More the details. What can people do to guard these sites? Because I actually was in Athens once and just came across this memorial. I was very touched by it. But it's by the Parthenon, or it's open, and then someone spray painted some, desecrated it.
And what's the depressing thing about what you just said? It's the fact that it needs to be guarded. Yeah. It's true. Open space, whatnot.
And of course, people forget that in Athens, there's about 5,000 Jews living in Greece now, but there were about 60,000 more, actually, that were murdered during the Holocaust. So, of course, they need memorials like that and apparently protection. Nearby in Turkey, interesting news. Different kind of development. This is something interesting. Today's Zaman, kind of an opposition newspaper there, you could say, reported that on a meeting that happened last Thursday of the National Security Council in Turkey, and for the first time, Erdogan was sitting in as president, not as prime minister. And apparently, there's on the agenda a decision made, according to a journalist, a Turkish journalist, to sort of fight the visibility of religious groups in Turkey. And by religious groups, I'm not talking about Christians or Jews, but actually sects, like Islamic sects, that are not part of the Turkish mainstream. Now, I don't have independent confirmation of that, but basically...
But if true, that's going to go over well.
It's going to be controversial. They also tried to list Fethullah Gulen's Hizmet movement as terrorist, but they didn't get a lot of traction with that.
He's the
guy
man who's
self-exiled in Pennsylvania. Yeah, so again, it looks like more of a consolidation of power that we're seeing winding up.
So I'm wondering, not to make light of the situation, which we never do, but if Erdogan does that as president now, what is the new title that he's going to seek for himself?
I don't know. It might start with a D, but I won't go there. Speaking of D, Daily Star Beirut. This is my favorite story of the morning.
Okay.
Hezbollah slams the Lebanese Minister of Justice, Ashraf Rifi, as a burden on justice instead of a minister. Why?
Why?
Well, because recently the Lebanese army raided warehouses belonging to Islamist forces in the north, Tripoli, and the Minister of Justice said, well, maybe we should raid Hezbollah warehouses too.
Ooh.
Okay.
Wow, yeah.
Pretty ballsy of him to do.
Very ballsy. Does he have extra protection this morning?
I don't know, but
he,
of course, Hezbollah, a member of because Hezbollah has a political part.
They're in the parliament.
Yeah, they slammed his comments, but it's interesting tit for tat going on there.
Yeah, more sectarian.
Exactly.
Yeah, more sectarian slurs and battles in and around the region. Happy Monday, y'all.
Here's something to be happy about in New York City. One World Trade Center is opening for business today.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And this is 104 stories. It's going to be it is the tallest, most expensive office building or building in the Western Hemisphere.
Yeah, my God.
Yeah. So page turns.
Business offices open.
And the article here in the Washington Post talks about how there's like a lower Manhattan revival. It used to be kind of.
Interesting.
Well, not the most residential-friendly kind of neighborhood, and they're saying that now it's becoming more people are not just working there, but they're going to live there as well, sort of a.
Which would be nice. I mean, and I think the revival actually, in a very bizarre, ironically so, it's very sad to say, came because so many people flocked to the area in the last decade to see the wreckage, to see the museums. It brought a lot of people coming in and visiting, so businesses opened up. But it's It's an optimistic turn. It definitely is.
Good to see. Good for tourism and all the rest of it. Let's see. Egypt is maybe not the world's greatest place to get married if you're gay, because apparently 8 guys are getting jailed over a marriage video. They sort of took a Nile cruise.
Oh, God.
On the Nile.
Oh, they're getting jailed for it.
Jailed, yes, because they posted this sort of innocent, kind of looked at it on YouTube, and apparently it was equated by one justice minister or something with a satanic ceremony or ritual. Didn't go down too well with the wheels of justice, and they have been sentenced to 3 years in jail. They can appeal. The families are, of course, outraged, and it's
No, it's a very sad. It's interesting and sad in a way. I mean, you look at be it journalists jailed in Egypt, like the Al Jazeera journalists who've been jailed for over a year. You see that, and you're thinking freedom of speech, freedom of rights. Yes.
Yeah. So it's something that's going to be watched, I think, very closely by various human rights organizations, and maybe they'll win on appeal because they basically, I saw the video, it was pretty
it was
pretty
just
vanilla
exercising
stuff.
their right to be free.
Yeah, on the Nile.
On the Nile.
Yeah, the river of life.
Yes, thank you. Okay.
Speaking of people being agitated, Pope Francis, USA Today reports, is agitating some conservative Catholics in the United States.
Good for him.
Yeah, led by the Archbishop of Philadelphia,
really?
Who says that Pope Francis is producing confusion, and confusion is of the devil.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that really harsh lingo in Catholicism?
Listen, it's
Catholicism?
It relates to Egypt in a way, because they say that the preliminary report about the more welcoming attitude towards gays and lesbians was part of the confusion and linked to Satanism, you could say, if you're from Philadelphia.
I have to say that when you've got, was that a bishop or a cardinal? Who said that?
Archbishop.
The Archbishop.
Of Philadelphia.
Of Philly, yeah. That's, how do you,
I don't
you
know.
can't really say much if you're an Archbishop
I'm
from
going to boycott
Philly.
Philadelphia cream cheese this morning.
You should.
Yes,
Amen
I'm going to go for
that.
hummus.
And plus, he allows the Amish on his land. Which is
Well,
all
that's
I will
another
say.
story.
Yes. Okay, and?
The New York Times talks about the dam in France that is at the root of a lot of controversy. There's a dam that's being, they're trying to build it in the south of southwestern France, and it's causing some opposition amongst environmentalists, and there have been protests. Last week, actually, a 21-year-old student, Rémi Fraisse, was killed after being hit by a stun grenade that protesters say was thrown by a police officer. It's touched off some violence in cities like Toulouse and Nantes. And this dam has become symbolic of the frustration of French youth, lack of employment possibilities, social tensions. And so this could be becoming something greater than just protest
in Turkey, when they were in Turkey, the scuffles of about a year ago started off from an environmentalist point of view of the destruction of parks. So
right, exactly.
As you said, this can be actually an outlet for young people, something to watch.
And something to watch for sure. And finally, the feminist T-shirts that are being worn by all these politicians in Britain. There's a couple of them, Miliband, actually have been made in sweatshops.
Nice.
Yeah. So apparently, I would say allegedly, but all signs are pointing to that.
Women are going to get their rights, but children are going to lose theirs. Wow.
Something like that.
So made in sweatshops, and they were worn by
there's a Nick Clegg there at Miliband, and apparently the feminist society that is looking into this. They're made in Mauritius, which is a beautiful island, but I guess they don't pay their workers quite what they should.
Tony, always the headlines that we should actually be looking at. You're with us next hour. Stick around for this next conversation.
See you in a bit.
On to our next topic. Over the weekend, Virgin Galactic's SpaceShip Two went down during a power test flight, killing one pilot and injuring another. Billionaire entrepreneur Richard Branson has vowed to find out what caused his space tourism company's passenger spaceship to crash during the test flight, and also has expressed his desire to press on with the dream of commercial spaceflight, although it's not looking very good this morning. And to find out more about it, we're joined in studio by the head of the Attitude and Orbit Control System in Space IL, Avi. Let me pronounce your last name.
Barlia.
Avi Barlia, okay, who's been sitting here very patiently. Good morning to you. Let's first take a look at what happened this weekend in the following report and break it down from there.
Officials continued investigating why a Virgin Galactic test flight of SpaceShip Two crashed on Friday, killing one pilot and injuring another, and are using the wreckage to understand what happened.
When the debris field spans that large an area, then we know there was an in-flight separation. If it had crashed together, then all the pieces would be close to each other, but that spread of the data of the debris field tells us that it was an in-flight separation, and of course the question then is, why did that happen? So that's what we are exploring. That's what our investigators are examining.
The crash scattered debris across the Mojave Desert, some 150 kilometers from LA. The accident was the second disaster suffered by a private space company in just a week, but those in the space tourism industry don't think they have suffered a blow.
No, I doubt anybody's going to be asking for refunds because this vehicle, once it starts flying, will be safe. And if they do, so what? There's lots of people. We're just at the very beginning.
Virgin Galactic owner, entrepreneur Richard Branson, said he'd understand if people were more reluctant to sign on for space exploration.
I would understand if people were more reticent now, but remarkably, we've had, I don't even know if we've had any cancellations yet. We've had hundreds of letters of support from all the astronauts saying they're very much sticking with the program. We've even had somebody sign up yesterday to go to space with us to show support.
The company had hoped to launch commercially in 2015, with Sir Branson set to fly on the inaugural flight. But at the moment, Branson says he's not sure when the first launch will be.
I'm certainly not going to speculate on dates or when these things might be happen. Look, I think it's a horrible day for Virgin Galactic, for commercial space travel. It's a massive setback.
More than 800 people already paid or put down deposits to fly aboard the ship, which is supposed to give passengers a view of Earth against the blackness of space and even a few minutes of weightlessness.
Well, we are joined by Avi Barlia in studio. You are actually the head of the Attitude and Orbit Control System in Space IL. Is that how I pronounce it? Space IL. Space as well. Space tourism, clearly a major blow to it right now. Is Branson, I mean, because he's been touting this, the Virgin Atlantic Millions, he's been touting this idea of space tourism for years now. Is it dead, or will he continue?
I wouldn't say it is dead. Before we speak about Virgin Galactic, I think this was a very bad week for the private sector of space industry, because a few days before this crash, we had another launcher that blew up. Yeah, blew up just after launch, and it was supposed to carry on cargo for the International Space Station, the ISS.
Yeah.
So, and this was a private company, Orbital Sciences, and it's the private sector that got hit, I think.
But isn't
last
also
week.
the private sector the one predominantly operating in space exploration in recent years? Because the United States has kind of given up on it. I mean, it doesn't have the money to do it.
The Obama administration kind of completely cut the budget for the space industry, the NASA.
Yeah.
They cut their budget, and this is what happened. It opened the space for,
for Richard Branson.
Yeah, for Richard Branson and other SpaceX and so on, and they got more and more a workload to do. But this is not necessarily bad, because I think this will increase the speed.
Right, of possible. But space tourism, which of course, probably will be only the playground of the rich and famous.
No, I think not. Only in the beginning. I mean, if you think about maybe 100 years ago about private aviation, in the days where it probably was as risky as what you see now, planes were crashing all over the place.
Really?
Well, it's at least at the experimental
this is,
stages.
We're looking, the experimental phase we're looking at, it's terrifying. It's reminiscent of the Columbia crash and and all the shuttles. But when I'm looking at that, I mean, space tourism, though, at the end of the day, granted, crashing on the way to space, but then, I think for aviation, when you land in some place, you could breathe. I mean, here there's a lot more that has to be involved.
Yeah.
Can it be done in the near future?
Well, it's definitely also Richard Branson. He doesn't want to give a date, maybe for his, the shareholders or so,
right.
and so on. But it's definitely, it could easily take a few years of a delay. Just the investigation itself can take more than a year easily, in order to get it right, to see really what happened. And I know that it was already published. They tried a different kind of a propellant for their SpaceShip Two. So it's a different kind of engines, different kind of propellant. This always takes so much time to develop.
Right.
And mistakes happen, and they learn from it. But I wouldn't say it's
I know, I'm just wondering, when you look at that, I'm wondering who the crazy tourist will be who will say that I want to go out there, which again, it's something that we should all aim for. But this will be the world of private investors and people willing, like Branson, to invest money in it, correct?
Yeah, so I'm assuming, I can't say what's going on in the heads of
the rich and famous.
Yes, but regulations will kick in really
at a certain point. Yeah. One would hope so, because we'd like to see these things succeed or actually investigated a bit further. Avi, thank you for joining us this morning. We're going to stick around on Earth for the time being. And when we get back, hundreds of Israelis petition Spain to recognize Palestinian statehood. We'll hear all about it soon. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Monday, November 3rd, 2014. This is the morning edition on I-24 News, the place you should be, because last I checked, I'm still Yael Levi, and thank you for staying with us. Now, after Sweden, Britain, Ireland, all of them voted in favor of recognizing a Palestinian state, the Spanish parliament is scheduled to debate the issue in a few days. 10 Israeli prize laureates, a former Knesset speaker, former ministers, and a number of Israeli actors and cultural figures have signed a recent petition calling on the Spanish parliament to indeed recognize a Palestinian state. Unilaterally, we remind you, as we've been dealing with here every single morning, there is no peace process in effect. That would be a unilateral move. So we are honored to be joined in studio by the former Knesset Speaker and author, political activist, former chairman of the Jewish Agency, and one of the signers of the petition, Mr. Avraham Bug. Good morning to you.
Good morning, yeah.
And, of course, via phone, we are joined by former Israeli parliament member, Professors for Strong Israel Chairman, Professor Aryeh Eldad. Professor Eldad, good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
Okay. Mr. Borg, I would like to start with you. This is one heck of a gutsy move, one would say, at a time where even the foreign ministry goes so harsh against Sweden that they seem to be closing the IKEA down in Netanya just because Sweden has recognized a Palestinian state unilaterally. What is behind this move that really takes a position from living within Israel? I mean, what are you and the people, the co-signers on the petition, hoping to achieve?
First, I really hope they won't do anything about IKEA, because this is a strategic threat over the very existence of the state of Israel.
I agree. My living room concurs.
Yeah,
yes.
you see. But having said that, I can say simply that this is actually the policy of the Prime Minister Netanyahu, who actually committed himself for the two-state solution, and wherever around the world who supports this against his rivals within the government, I support them to support him. But when I like to go beyond that, I would say that the discourse of the conflict between us and the Palestinians is part of a larger international global discussion about the Middle East, about the West and Islam, etc., etc. And this is a discussion which is not just ours only. And in this discussion, in this discourse, people like myself and the other co-signatories on this petition or on this letter would like others to know that in Israel there are still enough serious voices, not the majority, but significant voices who really support the move of a two-state solution.
And in that respect, Professor Eldad, joining us on the phone from Jerusalem, I'm assuming that you do not concur with that, but at the end of the day, aren't civilians and citizens, former politicians in Israel, allowed to voice an opinion that is opposite to the way the government currently is carrying out its policies?
Certainly, they can write articles in Israel, they can be interviewed all over the world, and the most efficient way to have some influence on the Israeli politics is to vote on election day. But unfortunately, from their point of view, they are quite small minority in Israel. So they try to impose, to enforce their ideas on Israeli democracy by using forces from outside. We cannot win in the election. The right wing in Israel win again and again in election. So let's get the support of the government of Spain or Sweden and put a lot of force on the Israeli government to change their policy. That's not democracy. That's
Well, actually, I mean, but an opposition within a democracy is allowed not just to voice an opinion, but to make certain moves. But, maybe you're the best person to answer this, Mr. Borg.
First, I really appreciate the expertise of Professor Eldad about minorities, because he is a real tiny minority within the right. I mean, even his own people did not voting for the Knesset anymore, so it takes one to know one. And welcome to the club, former MK Eldad. But having said that, I would say as follows. I don't understand the hollow hypocrisy of the Israeli argument. It's okay to withdraw every credit from the international community to get airplanes, to get money, to get submarines, to get unequivocal safety net, even in places in which we should not jump in the first place. This is Beseder. This is okay. This is kosher. But when it comes to invite the same participants who finance the occupation, who finance the economy of the State of Israel, in order to talk to them about the other side, which is the future, which is a better fate for both nations, this is not kosher, this is not okay, I don't understand it. You don't want anything to do with the Gentiles, with the non-Jews, with the rest of the world. You want to confine yourself in a kind of a self-ghetto, that's fine, but go all the way. But if you go half the way, please allow me to go the second half.
And in that respect, Professor Eldad, I'm wondering out loud here, when it comes to countries like Sweden, in Europe that are choosing and opting to recognize Palestine unilaterally, isn't that actually something that helps progress a peace process, because they're showing international agenda that, you know, the situation as it is right now is a status quo cannot continue?
The examples that Avrom Gur gave are really wonderful, because only the government of Israel, the democratically elected government of Israel, is allowed to ask for submarines, not a small minority group in the opposition. If I would ask the government of Spain to give me some submarines to change the government, the position or the policy of the state of Israel, I would be a traitor.
That's a fantastic argument. It is okay for Professor Eldad, for some individual loonies on the top of the mountains of Judea and Samaria to dictate to the entire nation, actually to the entire two nations, the future borders of the state of Israel against the Supreme Court verdicts, against the legal system in Israel, against the governmental policy. This is kosher for individuals actually to harm the future of the Israeli Israeli presence here. And it's not okay to talk about peace. But when I take it a step further, I wonder how comes that people like Eldad and Eldad's colleagues are meeting politicians from Nazi-like or racist-like parties like Strache in Austria and Filders in Netherlands and the Free the Free Democratic Party in Sweden. What is it? Whatever. This is okay, yes. Which is not the Israeli government, and they do politics with them like you've never seen before. This is okay to go to sleep with this kind of people, but it's not okay with me to sleep with or to wake up with people who really want peace for the region. I mean, I don't understand the logic or the morality of the argument.
And Professor,
the argument in saying that Avrom Gur is not trying to change my policy, but he is trying to change the policy of the government of Israel, using foreign forces, you're using foreign countries. That's traitorship.
I mean, would you consider that, you know, being a traitor, I think, are very harsh words, but I'm asking you, Mr. Berg, how do we think is, you know, a move as such going to progress the peace process? There are those who will argue that when the European countries unilaterally recognize Palestine, that doesn't actually support the going back to the table of both sides.
It will not do much because by the end of the day, we speak here about a situation in which between the Jordan and the Mediterranean, we do not have a shared space. We have a total, absolute monopoly over power, resources, politics, and freedoms of one side, and a total absence of it, a lack of it from the other side. And as long as the Israeli monopoly will not recognize the need through political persuasion or other means of persuasion, the need to recognize the very existence of the Palestinian people and their individuals and collective rights, no international pressure or local pressure will do it. Unfortunately, the kind of persuasion coming from the school of thought of Professor Eldad is paralyzing the Prime Minister, who is actually the most handicapped, paralyzed, passive Prime Minister we've had in our history. And in this, he even excels his teacher and mentor, Yitzhak Shamir. He is the best ever passive Prime Minister we had.
Sadly, all the time we have, because we can continue this discussion forever. Professor Eldad, I do want to thank you very much for joining us from Jerusalem. As we said, a controversial move, but one that both sides are defending very passionately. Avrom Gur, always such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Thank you. And, of course, this is the time of mourning. Are we going to fight like that? I think we should fight like that.
You know we're going to fight over?
No, what are we going to
Celebrity Halloween costumes.
Yes, of course.
You know, politics has its plays everywhere, right?
But you know what I forgot to do?
Oh, tell us. Go for it.
This is after everybody turn to me because I'm going to do the drum roll. After such an exciting debate, we're here with Tony Grant for the Viral Spiral. That is the web review. Yes,
the pop in the culture, the costumes.
The pop in the culture, I like that.
Yes, the pop from the top of the stars in Hollywood and New York, who, of course, Halloween was Friday, but the best part of Halloween comes after, when you get to judge the Halloween contest, the Halloween costumes, as if it were a contest.
Yes.
Look at that one. I think this is the winner,
Who
hands
is
down. Oh, don't you know? It's Heidi Klum. Now,
you wouldn't know.
No, she is famous for doing the most elaborate Halloween costumes. She dressed up as an old lady, like a really, really old lady last year. So now she was Crazy Butterfly Girl.
Now, I gotta say, this looks like it took 3 weeks to construct.
I'm sure she had like a team of
likely
biologists and whatever.
And where do you go with this? I mean, this was, I'm sure, a Halloween party of...
This was held at Tao downtown, I guess, in New York there. It's kind of Studio 54-ish, doesn't it?
It does.
Like it's something like
does.
I imagine like
back
disco,
in the day.
a little bit.
It's something that Taylor Swift will not be able to relate to.
No, not at all. And I don't. Of all the, and I was spending hours canvassing the photos. I didn't see one of Taylor Swift.
One of Taylor Swift.
Iggy Azalea,
even
sorry,
though as the ambassador of New York City,
unofficial. Katy Perry went dressed as a Cheeto.
Cheeto is the Cheeto?
Yeah. This was on the West Coast.
Okay.
She was at Kate Hudson's Halloween bash. There she is on the left, dressed as a Cheeto.
Or
you just want to gobble her up.
I just want to put my teeth around that. Yummy. Who's there in the middle?
I have to say, don't know, don't care, because Katy Perry is dressed as a Cheeto, and I'm wearing a Moschino tie in solidarity because she tends to use pop. How shall I say this? She takes like commonplace objects. She once dressed up as like, I don't know, a French fry or something, and this Italian fashion house.
Like those everyday junk food that we like to consume.
And she turns it into art because she's Katy Perry.
Because you're Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Well, I want to tell you that I'm about to bite down on your tie.
Oh,
just
well, like a Cheeto.
Bingo. Yes.
Okay. One more.
Please.
Rihanna.
Of course. A lot more. Yes. Rihanna.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Whoa.
Yeah. Raphael. At the Opus nightclub.
I can believe you recognized it as Raphael.
Cowabunga dude. I don't know. To me, it's a little bit like Robin from Batman and Robin.
I agree.
With the face mask.
And the Ninja Turtle, brouhaha, I think it's like the early 80s, the mid 80s.
Yeah, but it had a resurgence, a renaissance.
A renaissance for these Ninja Turtles.
Well, you know where it's Halloween.
Art doesn't come back, but the Ninja Turtles do.
Absolutely.
Yes. And
it's Halloween every day in Florida.
God, dude, it's Halloween every Shoot.
Did you see this one?
Myself.
This Florida pair was arrested after chemicals were found in their car, and I want to say that.
Okay.
That mugshot of Colleen Geneva Kirk, and I wish her a speedy rehabilitation.
The chemicals were found in the car, and clearly the windows were shut.
I thought that for a mugshot, you had to keep your eyes open, but I guess in Florida, you can keep them closed.
And not only that, I think they were looking in 2003 for weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, but no, they were in Florida.
Yes, on the South Dixie Highway. Oh, wait, North Dixie Highway.
Yes, and this woman, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes. And her man, because sometimes they come as a set in Florida. There's Florida.
Yeah,
Florida.
Okay.
Now, speaking of unlikely relationships.
Just before you continue, though, I really think that if you and I ever venture and fly together to Florida, we'll be killed.
Somebody's
going to shoot us.
I think we're probably persona non grata, but I have family there, so I have an entree.
You have entree.
I hope.
Okay, we'll be hiding behind you.
But all in good fun.
Yes.
All in good fun. We love it. We love it. And we love Lindsay Lohan.
Yes,
and Tom Cruise, but do we love them together?
No. Wait.
Okay. There's been much talk lately. Are they getting together?
I thought she was sober.
I thought he was an alien. Anyway, she's doing that play, Speed the Plow, in London.
Right.
And Tom Cruise has a lot of connections to London. I don't know what they are, but he's got them.
But so do Daily Mail claims. Okay.
Yeah, no, they apparently they did at least meet, but it was apparently like on a friendly level. Professional tips were exchanged or something like that. But not an item.
Oh, okay.
Not an item.
I would think so. I think he's learned his lesson with women 30 years younger than he is. Huh?
No. I mean, I think he's Tom Cruise. I mean, I think he puts his Scientology as his first love, as it should be. I mean, in his case.
In his case, yes, in his case.
Okay. Anyway, also in England, it's been a while since we talked about Camilla Parker Bowles.
Wow.
Apparently, according to one source, she's launched a full-blown mental assault against Kate Middleton.
Really?
I wouldn't put it past her. I don't believe it, but I wouldn't put it past her. So, I mean, who knows? Does she have her eye on the main prize?
Do we think so? I that would be, I think, so detrimental if it, anyway. I can't say it. I can't take sides. But interesting. It's like a reemergence of the royal, brouhahas and such.
It's like a real-life Game of Thrones.
No, I know. We will have to watch that.
Yes.
Tony, thank you so much.
Thank you.
When we get back, Grumpy Cats. Yes. early Christmas release of the trailer. We look at it and talk about it for 20 minutes. First, though, let's hear some more of this morning headlines. Ah, grumpy cat. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. You should have. It's I-24 News Morning Edition, October 3rd, and this is where you get to see three women. Yes! There we go. We are going.
And it makes us smile.
It does.
It makes us smile.
There are other places where you can see a lot of women.
True.
But you don't get the news, right?
No. You don't get the news. It's actually one of the few studios that I think we start a segment, and there are three women in the studio.
And they're actually talking
about
stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
And you don't get to see just our cleavage. So, here, what do we have? Well, what do we have? We have Karen Kirsch, who is actually a woman aficionado for anything and everything that is going out there in feminist news. And feminism is not a dirty word.
No, it's not. And we're in the segment that we started last week. I call it Viral Feminism.
Viral Feminism.
I think it's good. It's a good title.
It's a good title. It's a good term. Yes.
Well, there is a video that's been running for about 4 days or 5 days.
Yep.
Some of you may have seen it on Facebook, but we have it so we can see it, and then we'll talk
Definitely.
about it.
Let's take a look.
What's up, beautiful? Have a good day. Hey, what's up, girl? How you doing? Somebody's acknowledging you for being beautiful. She said thank you. Oh, bless you. Hey, baby. Hey, beautiful. How are you this morning? Have a nice evening. Nice. Damn. Damn. Beautiful. God bless.
Before we continue, you know what I never got as a cat call?
Yeah.
Damn.
Damn. No, she got a lot of damn.
I know, there's so much damn. Like, okay, you think I'm looking good? Why curse at me? Not that I ever got that many dams.
No, it's damn.
Damn.
You know, but she's walking in Harlem, I think.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're risking let's not cross. A dam comes all around, I gotta say, and it's just, she's walking actually all over New York.
All over. She's
not Harlem.
No,
yeah, she's walking all over.
She started up, going down. She walked for 10 hours.
It's 42nd Street, I think.
Yeah.
I think I recognize
that's
42nd.
That is 42nd.
We can recognize a lot of things, but that's not the issue. She walked all over New York for 10 hours. She walked with a man in front of her with a camera and in his backpack.
Right.
And that's how we have this amazing video.
Hidden.
They've edited. It's part of a campaign that's called Hollaback, and it's against catcalling, and also harassing women in the public sphere.
No, but not also. This looks like 10 hours of continuous sexual harassment. Yeah, which is basically what it is.
Yes, that's what it is. And the interesting is that it didn't, we were all responding to it as, wow, and this video has gotten over 1 million views in the first day and it's now crossed the 30 million views mark. So it's working in terms of, making some sort of viral...
It's getting awareness, but the disturbing thing is some of the reactions she's gotten. Right.
Of course.
What did she get?
She actually got rape threats. She herself, the actress who did this.
Right.
But on my Facebook, I'm not speaking about other people's Facebook. On my Facebook, there were women saying maybe she should take this as a compliment.
Oh God. Yeah. And that's right up there where she should not have worn that sleeveless shirt.
Oh yeah. And maybe she's wearing something a little tight, but she's actually the video starts off with her saying I'm wearing like a simple jeans and a simple
t-shirt
and a t-shirt that's without
because I gotta say, when I hear the argument of maybe she's wearing something tight, I'm assuming that means we all have to be going covered up completely with hijabs, most likely.
Of course.
Also, just so you don't see anything.
Iran knows what they're
doing. Yes.
But you know what? Some guys are asking me, how else should we pick on women? Like, how if I like you and I want to tell you that I like you, why would that be considered as a sexual harassment? So I figured out a good way to identify sexual harassment. Would a woman hit on a guy that way? If I wouldn't do that and you would, then that's sexual harassment.
There was actually a fascinating, I'm sorry, I'm only thinking of this now, there's a fascinating viral video, so they went out about, I think a month ago, where a British actor, producing
women were doing the
same thing to him. and how it feels humiliating and what it can lead to at the end of the day, because words do lead to actions. I think that's the main point of verbal
and
harassment.
Also, I think this video gives a very strong sense of what it feels like. You know, that she's sort of, I've recognized myself in these moments, you know, when you walk and you're not looking to the side, you're just looking, you know, looking straight. So I'm not going to
make eye contact. I'm not going to instigate anything. No.
Instigate and maybe seem like I'm interested.
In any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, since there is already a debate about it, and a lot of men and women are asking what Khen was asking.
And actually, I'm being told by my editor that we have actually a little video of a man walking down the street and the reactions to him.
That's actually a funny video.
That's a funny video.
Yeah, this is one of the parodies about it, and maybe we can. It's from
so that's,
Funny
I mean,
or Die.
as you said, that this is from Funny or Die. I've already parroting this specific video.
This specific video, totally
Let's take a
parodying
look.
this specific video.
Want a network? You want a network with me?
Hey, you look really desirable, but I'm gonna respect your privacy.
Hey, champ, you like football? Hey, do you want a job? Can I give you a job?
Hey, man, high five.
Now, I'm not saying this isn't funny, but it kind of shows that they're not taking seriously what the original video was saying. We're not feeling safe when we're walking in the street.
Yeah, that this is actually the point of it. But you know, in many ways, I personally
and
don't
also
find that
safe
incredibly
is not.
funny.
It doesn't mean that these men are going to, you know, jump them or something. You just, you know, you can't be yourself and you sort of.
No, I think every man would, you know, nobody understands what it means to go down the street and have strangers speaking to you for, you know, no reason whatsoever. And the fact that you're getting, you know, responses on your Facebook of women saying, well, she should be flattered, is to me what is ingrained within Western society is that we are, as women, we are judged by our looks. That we are judged by, you know, what is out there. By
and comments from men are some kind of, you know,
some kind of a compliment. Yeah.
To us.
Okay, I'm depressed. Lovely.
31 million
You look
views.
great. Damn.
No, damn me. I want a damn. Damn, woman. There you go.
Damn.
Maybe we
is
should start
actually
damning
nice.
guys.
No, completely. So we've got, you know, that and what did she say about the campaign? Just really quickly, the woman who set out to do it, the actress.
She set out to do it from a campaign that's organized by an association. It was a very strong and powerful thing for her. But she said it's nothing new. She's encountered it before.
Many times.
Many times. We've all do. So.
Yeah, lovely. On that depressive note, we have Khen Lieberman, another woman. Yeah, with us in studio. My God, I'm just thinking of that, you know, illustrious. If I would say this is a man right now, somebody would kill me. But you probably are catcalled galore. Here you look great.
I can't argue with
It's
that.
also the other thing I have to say that, you know, whenever you feel low as a woman, the first thing that somebody says to you in order to make you feel good is, but you look great.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know
or
that?
you don't look great when you cry.
Yeah,
there's
don't cry.
a Hebrew saying.
Yeah.
But I have to say, when I get catcalled, I answer back. I reply. That's my instinct. And it's not a healthy one because sometimes
it just encourages more conversation.
And it's funny, the reason why I used to be scared of replying is because I didn't want them to say, oh, you're ugly, because that's how they usually, like, once you answer them, then they'll start cursing you. And now I have no problem with them cursing me and calling me ugly. I'm fine with that.
Just watch out for the fist fight that may ensue.
Exactly.
But yeah, there's that too, because as we said, words do lead to actions at the end of the day. It's the whole point of sexual verbal harassment.
Yeah.
But Khen Lieberman is here
to talk about
other things.
Yeah, to talk about culture. Yes.
Culture,
pop culture.
Right, Grumpy Cat.
I'm sorry, Grumpy Cat is highbrow culture.
Right,
yes.
so
culture.
Thank you.
Christmas is coming, and Grumpy Cat, Worst Christmas Ever, is the most anticipated film, if you ask me.
I agree.
And everybody, if you have internet, you know who Grumpy Cat is. You recognize this face. It began as an internet phenomena in 2012, and now it has a whole movie based on this character. Now, cats can't really be trained, so you see that they're just using. I think it's a doll. Sometimes it really moves, but still, it has the face, and that's all you need.
That's all you need. And I gotta say, I mean, the thing about Grumpy Cat, other than, you know, I will admit it, I'm a cat aficionado.
Is it one cat?
Yeah, it's one cat.
Or does the cat like the twins in Full House? The cat has a twin and they alternate.
I mean, that's the thing. It's a real cat. Its owners had to quit its day job her day job in order to be this cat's manager.
Because the cat is so
popular.
Wow.
Now,
and he started on the internet, right?
Yeah,
Grumpy
of
Cat
course.
was just a viral video.
Where
on the
would
internet.
it start?
Yeah.
It didn't get.
So we had
one
catcalling.
It wasn't in Motown.
Money. It's probably making money for it.
Of course it is. But the thing is, the beautiful thing about it is that this cat suffers from dwarfism. It actually has a mutation that makes him look like her. Yeah, it's a she. So it makes her look like that, and that's why she has
look
such
like
a
that
funny
and also
face.
have this kind of face.
So that shows you where sometimes weaknesses can be our strength.
Our strength, but I think the thing I like most about Grumpy Cat Grumpy Cat looks like how I feel every single morning. No offense to anyone or out there in the audience, but that's the kind of morning look, right?
Grumpy Cat.
So what's it called? The worst Christmas ever?
Yeah.
Amen to that.
Grumpy Cat's worst Christmas ever. And now let's talk about more highbrow films. The Abu Dhabi Film Festival that ended this weekend is a good chance to talk about ISIS and the way the Arab film world is going to treat it, because unlike the Arab Spring, and this is the film Return to Homs, which got great reviews, and it's returning to Syria after last year, but unlike the Arab Spring, which was the last big event that the Arab filmmakers treated, ISIS is not an easy subject to treat because
ever evolving, ever changing,
and no one is protected from ISIS, right? No journalists, no filmmakers. So even if you're a filmmaker who's working on a film, you have to keep it low profile. Very low. No one should know, and it's really hard to go back into these areas and film documentaries because
I think that is the problem
dangerous.
that we actually face also in the news organizations, that when it comes to IS, the Islamic State organization, it's the fact that, going in there, seriously, nobody is safe. It's, the carte blanche of somebody from the media, of a journalist saying that he's protected by the right for information. We've seen how that ends with the Islamic State organization. But, terrifying to see. And those people who actually go in there, what is this film, Return to Homs? Just tell me a little bit more about it, that actually risk their lives to bring the story out.
Right, and it's returning to Syria after last year's events. And but people are saying that now it looks like a history lesson because things have changed so drastically since they shot this film. It takes time to edit it, and things are changing so rapidly. But Arab filmmakers who visited the Abu Dhabi Film Festival are trying to take responsibility of telling the right story, because they're saying Hollywood is going to treat IS and they're going to treat it with their stereotypes and ignorance that evolves from the lack of information leads to these kind of stereotypes. And Arab filmmakers are trying, but they don't really have the abilities right now to try and tell the real story.
Right.
But who knows what the real story is.
Why they came to be? Why are they so strong?
Trying to understand them instead of just showing them as the evil
terrorist.
Something
Which
that
is,
for us it's kind of hard to even.
It's hard to even stomach, but in many ways, that's the whole essence of press. That's the whole essence of documentaries. It's showing a certain side, not necessarily meaning that you agree with them. Right. But to see how the mechanism works, and that in many ways I think it will also be hard for Western audience to stomach, because Karen, you very rightfully mentioned it's how they came to be, which I think certain foreign policies have to take responsibility for, and time will tell if they will ever do that.
People are not born terrorists.
Yes.
But that's an extreme thing to say.
Very much so.
Because it sounds like you identify or justify. No, you're just saying they're not born this way. If we manage to understand how they become this way, maybe we'll be able to
maybe to combat them, to try and change.
Exactly.
The mechanism of understanding something to its core. Yeah, intelligent words from women. Moving on. Yes.
So now let's talk about the catchiest song. I love the way we jump from pop culture to serious discussion.
It is your morning mix.
That's because we're multitaskers.
Exactly. So now let's get back to the song Wannabe by Spice Girls. For me, it's an empowering, feminist document. If you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends.
That sums it up. If you want to be my lover, you got to get with my friends, which I have to say, when the song first came out, somebody I was dating said, I'm so up on that. Which is like, no, we're not talking about full-blown orgies. This is actually Wow, look at that. Remember, what year did this come out?
1996.
So how was this, not voted but concluded as the catchiest song ever?
So there was research that was made through an app, which is a game app. So 12,000 people participated, and they had to, so they listened to a part of the song. They had to press yes if they recognize it, then hum it to themselves, and then the song comes back, and if they're synchronized with the song, it means that they recognize the right song.
It's catchy.
Right?
Yeah.
So this song, Wannabe, it took by average 2.3 seconds to identify it.
As opposed to others.
Yes, exactly. Okay. The second catchiest song is Mambo Number 5.
Mambo Number 5! Wow.
And we also
I'm
have Eye of
wondering
the Tiger.
who used the app. You know, the ages and stuff.
Yeah, the ages
maybe it's not,
probably
you know,
people
like...
my age, I have to say. I mean, I recognize the song. I wouldn't say that that was the catchiest thing that stuck in my head. Spice Girls, but
the most identifiable one. But it was, I think most of the audience that participated in this research is based in the UK.
In the UK, there we go.
And
then we have
UK
it.
hit.
And
I love this song, so I'm all for the results of this research.
And of course, you might sing us off from the air as we say goodbye. I-24 News Morning Edition, you heard it here first, and you heard it from all women. Yes. So don't forget to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and tune in tomorrow morning for another edition of your Morning Edition, because we'll be watching you and you get to see chicks on the air. So there we have it. Thank you.
Now let's sing. If you want to be my lover,
I think we need to hear the song again.
With my friends. Make it last so feminist.
And the microphones were on.